All right, let's get into it. This is a story about a global scientific race, a massive bet, and one single grain of rice that would go on to reshape a nation's future. This is how cracking a genetic code unlocked a 2-decade-long harvest of pure innovation. So first, let's just remember what we're talking about here. Rice. I mean, it's not just some crop on a long list of crops, right? It's the main fuel for billions of people. Seriously, billions. So understanding it, really understanding it down to its core, isn't just a fun science project. It's absolutely essential for global security. And then, in 2002, something incredible happened. A huge international team of scientists finally did it. They read the entire genetic instruction book for rice. Every single line of code that tells a rice plant how to be a rice plant was finally out in the open. That was the moment everything was about to change. But this story isn't just about that one breakthrough. It's really about what happened after. It's the story of how Thailand, a country where rice is just woven into its very identity, took that genetic manual and used it to kickstart 20 years of unbelievable discovery. So you might be asking, why rice? Of all the major food crops out there in the world, why did scientists pour so much time and money and effort into decoding this one first? Well, it really comes down to size. Just look at this chart for a second. That first bar, that's rice. It's pretty small. Now look at corn. And then wheat? Wheat is just gigantic in comparison. The rice genome, with about 430 million DNA letters, was complex, for sure, but it was manageable. That made it the perfect model organism. Basically, the ideal test case that could help scientists figure out the much, much more complicated genetics of all the other major grain. And yeah, when we say genome, we really do mean the complete instruction manual, the whole shebang. Reading it meant we could finally start to figure out which instructions controlled which traits. Everything from how big the grain is, to what color it is, to how well it fights off disease, and, you guessed it, even what it smells like. Now, this mission to decode rice wasn't some quiet little project tucked away in a lab. Nope. By the late 90s, it had exploded into a full-on international race. You had public groups, private companies, everybody was scrambling to be the first to cross that finish line. And Thailand decided they had to be in that race. And this timeline just shows you how intense it all was. So the public project, the IRGSP, kicks things off. But then you see these huge private companies, Monsanto and Syngenta, jump in and announce their own versions. Thailand officially joins the public team in '99, right in the thick of it. And it all leads to this huge moment in late 2002, when the public project releases the final, complete, gold standard version of the genome. But here's the thing, joining that race was not an easy call. For Thailand, this was a massive project. They didn't have a ton of experience with this kind of huge genomic work, and it was going to cost a lot of money. People were seriously debating, is it really worth spending millions to study a Japanese rice variety? The real turning point, the thing that pushed them over the edge, was a 2 million baht donation from Princess Sirendon. That provided the seed money to get started. It was this powerful symbol of national commitment that really got the ball rolling, and it helped get Thailand's scientists into the game. It was a huge bet on the future. And that bet started to pay off, and fast. The first big win for Thailand wasn't just about collecting data. It was about solving this delicious mystery, a mystery right at the heart of their most famous export, jasmine rice. For literally centuries, everybody knew jasmine rice smelled amazing, but nobody knew why. What was it deep in its genetic code that was responsible for that incredible popcorn-like fragrance that people all over the world love? Well, with the genome map in hand, scientists could finally go hunting for the answer. Okay, I know this slide looks a little complex, but the story it tells is so cool. On the left, you can see how scientists painstakingly track down the aroma trait to this one tiny little section on chromosome 8. And on the right, you can see the chemistry behind it. And what they found was amazing. It turns out a tiny genetic mutation, basically a typo in the DNA, breaks a specific enzyme. This break creates a little detour in a chemical process. And that detour is what produces the aroma we all know. It's like a happy little accident in its DNA. So yeah, it was just a masterclass in genetic detective work. First, they found the gene's general neighborhood on chromosome 8, which is just one of the bundles that DNA is packed into. Then they zoomed in, mapping the area piece by piece. And finally, they found their culprit, one single tiny mutation in a gene they called OS2AP. That was the whole secret. And this wasn't just some neat scientific finding. This was incredibly valuable. This discovery led to the very first patent ever for a rice aroma gene, which helped secure a really important part of Thailand's agricultural heritage. Finding the secret to jasmine rice was just the first domino to fall. Once they had the complete genome map and the skills to use it, it kicked off what you can only call a genomic gold rush in Thailand. One discovery just started leading to another and another. You can actually see that momentum building right here on this timeline. Just a couple years after the aroma gene in 2004, bam, they're mapping genes for fighting off diseases. Then they find genes for new dwarf varieties, which can help increase yields. By 2019, they're using these super advanced techniques to find genes even faster, leading to incredible stuff like the development of highly nutritious rainbow rice. It just kept building. And the discoveries they were making were across the board. Suddenly, scientists could find the exact genes that controlled how well rice could handle floods or drought, how it resisted pests, what the texture and taste were like when you cooked it, even how nutritious it was. The entire instruction book was open for business. So, after 20 years of all this amazing research, what's the actual harvest? What does all this science really mean for the people who grow rice and eat it every day? It means this: more than over 60 new and improved rice varieties have been created and given to farmers. And these aren't just lab tests. These are real crops out in the fields with better yields, better nutrition, better defenses, all because of that one big investment in science all those years ago. And maybe this is the most important part. This work is more critical today than ever before. That genetic toolkit they've built over the last 2 decades, it's now the main weapon they have to develop new kinds of rice that can survive the droughts, the floods, and the heat that come with climate change. So, what's the final verdict? Well, the scientists who started this whole journey pretty much summed it up with this quote. It says, "This marks a large-scale research investment that has been worthwhile." In other words, the huge gamble, the debates, the cost, it all paid off big time. Which leaves us with this one last really fascinating thought. We just saw how decoding the instruction manual for one single plant completely transformed it for an entire country. It really makes you wonder, as this technology gets cheaper and faster, what other genetic codes are we about to crack? And what could that mean for the future of all of our food?